Hi everyone, Neko here with another recap. Today's show is about a high school freshman who becomes the unwilling assistant to his magical senpai, a girl who loves performing magic tricks, but is terrible at it. I hope you enjoy it. An inexperienced freshman of Talentless High is required by his school to join a school club. Although he wants to join an easy club so he can go home to play video games, he accidentally stumbles upon his senior who is rehearsing a sleight of hand. When he catches her practicing magic, she gets so panicked that she throws up and then starts hyperventilating. Although she tries to practice again, since she has an audience now, she continues to become nervous and throws up. Senpai tries to show off another trick to him, but he soon notices that she is rather disorganized as a pigeon flies out of her hat, and when she prepares her trick she has to fake having the pigeon. She also asks for his money to use for a magic trick, but once she takes his money she accidentally cuts it and has to give up her own money to pretend her trick works. Before the freshman can escape, Senpai tries to persuade him to stay by demonstrating a trick with ropes, but she accidentally gets herself tied up as a result. The next day, the freshman sees Senpai performing tricks in the courtyard to try to recruit new members for her magic club, and she calls him her assistant. After she forces him to be his assistant for a demonstration, she asks him to stall for time, but he quickly bores the audience. Senpai reveals a magic box that she will use to demonstrate her escape. But after assistant helps her into the box, she becomes trapped after several minutes and has to be saved by him. The next day, Senpai uses the school's POS system to embarrassingly summon assistant to the magic club room. When he arrives at the club room, she shows off food that he has cooked and assistant immediately becomes suspicious. Although Senpai pretends the food is edible, assistant quickly discovers there are keys hidden in the food and he locks her up in the box as punishment. The next day, Senpai announces a new trick that she has practiced with her pigeon Bahamut. But when they release Pigeon from his cage, he quickly pecks Senpai. Although she tries to get control of the pigeon, it quickly escapes from the magic club and they have to put up a missing poster for Bahamut. One day at lunch, assistant sees Senpai eating alone. Feeling sorry for her, he joins her for lunch and she decides to show off a spoon-bending illusion that she has developed. But when she demonstrates her own trick, the assistant successfully can do the trick while Senpai fails. But while performing the trick, Senpai notices she accidentally spilled hot sauce on her assistant's curry, so she tries to use fake hypnotism to hide her mistake. The hypnotism doesn't work, so assistant challenges her to eat and finish the spicy curry. Later that day, Senpai shows off a new trick to push a coin into a glass. But when she demonstrates the trick, she loses the coin on top of the club cabinet. She tries one more time, but again fails with the same result. Assistant wonders if she is failing so many times to tease him, and he demands that they find some way to learn magic better. Senpai tries the trick once more, but just ends up hitting assistant with the coin. The next day, Senpai arrives with a stuffed animal she has named Behemoth. Assistant wonders if she has no friends after she attempts to use Behemoth to perform several tricks unsuccessfully. Senpai then accidentally steps on Behemoth by accident, and then cries after crushing it. One day, assistant finds Senpai in the park struggling to entertain some kids. But the kids are so bored with her tricks failing that they just want to play video games instead. Assistant tries his hardest to entertain the kids with Behemoth, and Senpai also tries a quick change trick, but leaves when she fails again. The next day, Senpai finds assistant trying to sign up for another club, so she kidnaps him and forces him to officially join her club. Then after showing off a basic disappearing trick with toy rabbits in an attempt to inspire him, she accidentally locks him into the club room. The next day, Senpai helps assistant submit his club application to his homeroom teacher. But after seeing his teacher, Senpai pretends to be sick to avoid meeting his sister. It turns out that teacher is actually Senpai's older sister who teases her all the time. Teacher is interested to see Senpai's efforts in making a magic club and asks to see a magic trick from Senpai, an assistant. Senpai shows off a card trick for her sister, but although she is moderately successful, teacher keeps teasing her. They eventually make so much noise that the principal drags the teacher away. Later, Senpai is determined to prove her superiority over magic by criticizing assistant's attempts at magic tricks. She starts an assessment of his abilities and then starts to critique his presentation skills, but when he complains that she is being unfair, she is determined to show off her own skills. She successfully performs another card trick on him, but a flustered assistant only notices her wardrobe malfunction. The next day, Senpai decides that she wants to get over her stage fright. But although the assistant helps her with various strategies like drinking lots of liquid, taking deep breaths, and repeating encouraging phrases, she is unsuccessful. Later, Senpai decides to wear a kimono so she can demonstrate traditional Japanese magics. But her attempts at a water trick accidentally create a fire that sets off the fire alarm for the school. They retreat to the park after getting kicked out of the school for starting a fire, and Senpai tries to use nearby pigeons for her next trick, but they just attack her. One day, Senpai announces to assistant that it will be his 1-month anniversary in joining the magic club. She wants to celebrate this special event with a red rope trick to celebrate the strength of their friendship. but is shocked when the red rope breaks easily. She then tries to give him a ring asking him to stay at the magic club forever. The teacher arrives to tell them that their club has been rejected and does not have official status. They are informed they have 1 week to submit another club application. Assistant tries out for different clubs, but he keeps running into Sempai, who is also joining other clubs, but still practicing her bad magic tricks. While chasing him, Sempai gets recruited into the track club due to her speed, but soon has to leave because she is obsessed with magic. The next day, Sempai arrives with 2 more pigeons to use for her next act. She is determined to train them to be good assistants, but finds them too loud at night. Soon the last day of the club arrives and Sempai tries to show off the sword box illusion trick. But the trick fails since Sempai is bad at dodging the practice swords. One day Sempai is showing off her magic and is actually successful at all her tricks, but this is because Assistant is gone and Sempai no longer has an audience. Assistant reveals himself to have joined the chemistry club next door so that he can still help her with her magic tricks, even though he is part of another club. One day Assistant hears that rumors of a weirdo practicing magic badly have been circulating throughout the school. He correctly deduces that Sempai is the weirdo, and tells her to retreat to her box so that he can uphold his upstanding reputation. Though when Sempai performs a trick that goes wrong, he accidentally worsens his reputation, when a pair of girls discover the 2 of them in a scary position. The next day Sempai announces improvements to her quick change trick after getting help from her sister. But although Sempai successfully performs the trick, she is sabotaged by her big sister, who gives her embarrassing outfits. Later, Assistant is helping Medara, the president of the chemistry club, but when he tries to compare magic to science, she soundly rejects the comparison, stating that science is real and magic is just supernatural nonsense. She shows off some tricks that look like magic but are just based on scientific phenomena, impressing Assistant greatly. Later, Sempai prepares to impress Assistant with a new trick and hides in her box, but she becomes trapped when Assistant arrives at the club and sits on the box. Thinking that she isn't in the club room, Assistant accidentally admits that he thinks that Behemoth the stuffed animal is very cute, but Sempai accidentally thinks that he is talking about her. An embarrassed Sempai tries to reveal that she overheard his thoughts after thinking he just accidentally confessed to her, but he has already left the club room. The next day Sempai invites Assistant to her room, as she wants to discuss his accidental confession to her the previous day. But although she prepares different baking treats, she fails many times to confront him. Finally, she reveals that she overheard his accidental confession, but to her horror discovers that Assistant was really talking about the stuffed animal. One day an upperclassman called Saki arrives, declaring her intent to start a hostile takeover of the magic club, and to revolutionize the club to be focused on street performance. Saki and Sempai get into a rivalry, but Saki gets distracted after Saki successfully reveals a balloon animal trick. Saki announces that she intends to make her little brother Masashi the club president, but when Masashi arrives he tells everyone that he'd like to just be a normal member. Sempai appreciates having more members for the club, but is uncertain about the magic club's direction. Saki and Masashi then show off their street performance tricks, which challenge Sempai to show off her own tricks with Assistant. But Sempai becomes so nervous that she fails at every single trick she attempts to do. Eventually, teacher arrives to announce that she will be the advisor to the magic club, which they can now form since they have enough members. Later, Sempai decides to practice her hypnotism skills on Assistant through the help of a Hypnotism for Dummies magazine. Sempai tries to hypnotize him, but after she fails, Assistant tries hypnotism and successfully reverses the lesson and hypnotizes her instead. But the techniques prove too powerful, and Assistant accidentally persuades Sempai that she is a cat. One day at school, Saki is sad over her latest attempts to bake cookies from Masashi, which always end in failure. She sees Sempai enjoying some cookies, so she decides to ask Sempai to help teach her to bake. Sempai decides to make cookies for Assistant, and Saki makes cookies for Masashi. But when Masashi eats the cookies, they discover that they had accidentally swapped the cookies. Later, Sempai shows off the club budget given by teacher, but they discover that they have been given no money at all. To help raise funds for the club, they decide to perform a show at the nearby park and ask for donations. Although Sempai isn't successful with her own show, Masashi and Saki are able to use their skill in making balloon animals to raise money for the club. The next day, Sempai announces that she will be performing an underwater magic illusion to show off her escape abilities. But the club becomes worried about her skills and demands she call off the trick. They persuade her to use rope instead of chains, but after she takes too long underwater, Assistant jumps in to save her. The next day, Assistant helps Sempai to make another attempt to get over her stage fright. They perform various tests to determine what kinds of audience generate stage fright for Sempai. They finally create a cardboard cutout of Assistant for Sempai, and she successfully performs a trick in front of the cardboard audience. One day, Sempai becomes obsessed with a new magic trick about face changing. She brings the club together to discuss how they can perform a face-changing trick, and they try out different ways to perform the trick, such as creating fake faces and to use multiple people in a costume. Unfortunately, every strategy they try ends in failure. Later that day, Senpai reveals to Assistant that she was kicked out of the cafeteria for practicing her magic. She decides to test her face reading skills on him using a book on reading people, but Assistant quickly turns the table on her because Senpai is very expressive and easy to read. That evening, Senpai shows off a new website that she created dedicated to the Magic Club, but Assistant is horrified with Senpai's web design skills and the horribly designed website. Saki decides to help by taking pictures of Senpai for the site, but Assistant is horrified to see that Saki accidentally made matters even worse. The next day, the Magic Club gets an invitation to perform in front of a local nursery school. Senpai is very nervous, but she manages to entertain the kids with her simple tricks and manages to perform her first successful show. One day, Senpai tries out a telepathic trick on the club. She asks the club to write their thoughts onto paper and pretends to use telepathy to read their thoughts. After she fails, Assistant decides to try but finds that Saki just writes a love letter to Masashi. Masashi just wants his sister to leave his stuff alone, and Senpai writes nothing on her paper. Later, Senpai and Saki decide to play a counting game while they are waiting to take an exam. But although Senpai comes up with plans to win the guessing game, Saki is able to win several times by reading Senpai's expression. Later, summer arrives at the club, and since the club members are all overheating, they all decide to get ice cream after Senpai destroys their last box with her latest magic trick. At Saki's suggestion, they decide to also go to the beach as part of their summer vacation. But Assistant becomes embarrassed when they go on a shopping trip to get swimsuits. When they make it to the beach, the club have a fun time swimming and taking part in beach activities. But due to an unfortunate accident, the two girls lose their swimsuits, and although they call for help, the boys are just playing video games on the beach. Eventually, Saki and Senpai are able to return to the beach by using Saki's balloons. Later, Assistant finds Madara at the beach researching beach animals, and reveals that the Magic Club is also at the beach. Madara is visiting her grandmother nearby, so she shows off the beach sunset to Assistant. Eventually, he invites her to join the club in a watermelon splitting game. They all take turns to split the watermelon while blindfolded. Saki sabotages Masashi's attempt by giving him false directions, which he punishes by burying her in sand. Madara shows off her math skills, but fails due to her bad sense of direction. A nervous Senpai tries to use her magic powers, but accidentally takes out all of them with the bat instead. Evening soon falls, and they decide to hold a small fireworks show. To celebrate the event, Senpai attempts to perform several fire-related tricks but fails by burning their money, and then accidentally setting off all the fireworks early. Madara saves the situation by bringing small fireworks from her grandmother that they can all use instead. After they return to school, Senpai shows off her new sleight of hand trick that involves the use of 4 balls. But since she keeps failing at her trick, she decides to compare her hand size with Assistant to see if she sweats too much for the trick. Although the two become embarrassed to hold hands, they quickly discover that Senpai has very sweaty palms. Later, Saki is depressed in the club room because Masashi has been avoiding her. She tries to cheer herself up by showing off a puppet of Masashi to Assistant and performing ventriloquism. She tries to teach him ventriloquism and then teases him by making him kiss a puppet of Senpai. Saki then leaves the puppet as a gift to him. The next day, Masashi reports to Assistant that he saw Senpai walking around with a strange person. The club decides to spy on Senpai to discover her secrets, and they find Senpai eating at a family restaurant. After watching Senpai eat cake alone and practicing her magic, they follow her to a convenience store, but she just spends several hours in the bathroom. That evening, they eventually find Senpai meeting a guy outside the train station. An Assistant becomes sad when the club wonders if Senpai has found a boyfriend. The Masashi points out that the man has a wedding ring and comes up with wild theories that he might be some sort of assassin. After imagining the worst, the Assistant confronts Senpai that night, but they discover that Mimura, the strange man, is actually Teacher's husband getting advice on a birthday gift for Senpai's older sister. The next day, Saki and Masashi decide to teach the rest of the club how to make balloon animals. Although Saki is able to successfully teach Assistant, Senpai can only make different species of eels. The one time Senpai manages to make a dog, she accidentally pops the balloons. One day, Senpai attempts to impress Assistant with another escape trick, but she accidentally locks herself in the locker. After Assistant leaves thinking that Senpai successfully pulled off the trick, Senpai falls asleep trapped in the locker until the janitor finds her later that night. The next day, Madara impresses Assistant with more tricks due to her scientific knowledge, while Senpai watches from afar. While Assistant saves Madara from an accident, Senpai becomes worried that the chemistry president is stealing her assistant away from her. Senpai decides to challenge Madara as a fellow club president, but after showing off her failed magic tricks, Madara determines that Senpai is harmless. Later that evening, Senpai finds Assistant dozing off in the club room, so she practices her magic tricks in front of him. But eventually she just plays with cards on his head. Eventually he wakes up, and she decides to wear a bunny costume to try to get over her stage fright. But after performing several tricks in front of assistants, she just ends up embarrassing the both of them. And this is all for this video. Make sure to subscribe if you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next one.